Before we get going, I want to introduce Angelica. She's with our Buncombe County Communications team, and she is going to be with us a lot moving forward, helping us live stream our meetings. So as you all know, we're a public facing meeting, and now we are publicly accessible on the internet as well, and we record it. So right now, I don't think today that we're live streaming to the Buncombe County Facebook page, but we're live streaming on public input and on YouTube. So people who are looking for us will probably join us today. And in the future, if we're on the Buncombe County Facebook page, people might just come across us and hop in to see what's happening.
Like we should have a parental advisory.
I'll share a QR code as well that goes to it's called our public input site. It's our sister site to the county website, and all of our boards live stream there.
Can folks online do it? Right,
Ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, well, good morning. This is our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council board meeting. This is Thursday, December 21st. This is a hybrid. We are at 200 College Street as well as on Zoom. I am George Redmond. I am the JCPC chair. Let me just first start off with introductions. If we can just go around the room so we can figure out who is here and if we have a quorum or not. I'll start with my right so I can end my sister. Lorraine, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
My name is Lorraine Williams. I'm an area consultant that works with the JCPC.
And I'm Angie Garner with Via Health.
I'm Scott Dennis. I'm with the Public Defender's Office.
I'm Mary Trogdon Drinkwater. I am a court counselor supervisor.
I am Fatima Inab. I am a court counselor at District 28.
I'm Olivia Clark. I'm also a court counselor. Community member.
I'm Hannah Ledgerton, Youth Justice Division Manager with Buncombe County and support for the JCPC.
I'm Brandon Priester from Landiscout Regional Council, and I am the Business Service Coordinator for Youth.
Sergeant Craig Loveland with the Asheville Police Department.
Martin Moore, Buncombe County Commission.
Angel Redmond, Facility Supervisor with Parks and Rec.
And who do we have
on
on Zoom?
Let's see. For members, we have Banta Whitner.
Banta, you there?
Banta,
yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Thank you. And then D. Terrell McGirt.
Good morning, everyone. D. Tyrell McGirt with Asheville Parks and Recreation.
Dee, do you want to pass it to somebody else?
Sure, I'll popcorn to Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin with Aspire Youth and Family, and I will pass it off to Sergio.
Good morning. I'm Sergio Fernandez, Aspire Youth and Family, and I'll pass it to Hannah.
And I'm a trick person since I'm in the room, but I'll pass it back to Dr. No.
Good morning, Dr. Noriel Armstrong, Chief Equity and Human Rights Officer in the Equity and Human Rights Office. Let's see. I will pass it off to Judge Dotson Smith.
Good morning, folks. Coming from home today, but happy to be here. I am Judge Dotson Smith, and I serve on the Family Court Rotation and also facilitate the School Justice Partnership. And I'll pass it off to Pivot Point WNC.
Hi, good morning. I'm Mo. I'm with Pivot Point Western North Carolina, and I will pass it to Ava.
Good morning, I'm Ava with Justice Services Clinical Services Program, and I will pass it on to Eric.
Good morning. I'm Eric Robinson with Ashford Housing Authorities, Homeownership and Family Self-Sufficiency Coordinator. And I'll pass it to Karen Pearson.
Happy holidays, everyone. It's Karen Pearson with Buncombe Alternatives, and I'm with Buncombe County Teen Court, School Justice Partnership, and Earn and Learn Community Service and Restitution. And sorry about that. I will pass it on to Kadia.
Hi, my name is Kadaya Ross. I work for Buncombe HHS as a program manager, and I am the health director designee. I will pass it to Tiffany.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Tiffany Hanacho with Justice Services. I can't pass right now, so if anybody can pass for me, that'd be great.
I think we're close to the end. Suzanne, Ava, did you go?
No. Good morning, everyone. Suzanne Avitt with Buncombe County Health and Human Services.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online? Wasn't gone yet?
Think we're good?
I think we're good.
Well, it's so great to hear that we have everyone on board. It sucks that we can't have everyone here, but listening to everyone's names and what you do for our community, it's wonderful to be a part of Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. If all these heads put together, try to figure out what's best for the youth here in this county. The next item on the agenda is to review the minutes that were passed out from the last board meeting. The last board meeting was in October 19th. I believe Hannah had sent those minutes out. If you haven't reviewed them, should have reviewed them by now. They're not too much, but if you need time to review them, we can do that as well. First off, I guess just by a show of heads or hands, everyone read them?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right, so if there's any motion out there that wants to start with the approval of these minutes, we can.
I move to approve.
Ooh, whoa, that's kind of fast. Martin, you be the commissioner this morning. That's amazing. Good. Do we have a second?
The coffee works the first 10 minutes.
Angel, the first, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Angie, everyone in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposing, say nay. All right.
Attorney Redmond, this is Judge Dotson Smith. I think I was at judges conference, so I just want to abstain because I don't think I actually was attended. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. All right, so as we move on to the next agenda item, looks like we have Juvenile Justice, DJJ, giving us an update.
All right, so our update is right now we have the complaints have been steady coming in. The management team, we continue to assist and support in intake and also carrying caseloads for supervision. Hopefully we'll be able to pass it off soon. That's our goal. We hired 2 new court counselors in October that y'all have met. And then we have 2 other new court counselors. I believe y'all met them in October, and we're just really excited to have them. They're eager, they want to learn, and they seem excited about learning their new role. 3 of them will be going to basic training in January, so they'll be gone for 3 weeks. And then another will go to basic training in February. And then we are expecting a return court counselor, hopefully in January. And then that court counselor staff, we've been working hard and we are looking forward to our Christmas break.
So who's the return? Is that something you're in?
Y'all will know more next year.
Angie, don't. Mary, you talked about complaint study. Are we having any sort of issues with the school justice partnership and with schools, anything like that? Can you kind of give a brief update? Is that working or is there issues with that?
So I would say it's definitely gotten better. Every once in a while, we will get an incident report from an SRO with something that should have gone through school justice partnership. And so we're just talking them through that process. And then they're going back to
Rerouting.
Yeah, rerouting it. I did have one SRO, he's like, I don't know anything about that, so I just encouraged him to talk with his higher ups in his area, but that, I would say that has definitely decreased stuff coming in from the school.
Is there any data on that? Like, do you have the data to assess that?
I do not have any data right now. That was Tiffany.
Yes, Tiffany.
And at this point, all of the programs have always gotten, or many of the programs have already gotten some community referrals. So there's no way, when I'm pulling the reports from NCLs, there's no way for me to know which ones are coming from the school justice partnership shift. There's definitely a shift. There are more referrals. That's from the community. That is really clear.
Mary, is that just a certain amount of schools that are using that program, or is it?
It's supposed to be all Buncombe County and Asheville City.
I think Sergeant Loveland, one thing that I know that I think Chief Clement has been interested in is if you want to arrange a meeting to talk through some of it, I know that's something that you all were working on.
Yeah, we're still in a position where we're contacting you guys, so definitely need to get on that as quickly as possible. So certainly a lot of times where we have that opportunity to go that route.
I will let you want to reach out to Ms. Clement. I'll let her know.
I see Robin Frazier has a hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. Does anybody know if the school justice partnership covers charter schools?
Let Judge Dotson Smith answer that.
Judge, you're on mute.
Sorry, not my normal computer. So what I will say is that I think that there is an opportunity for them to be part of the school justice partnership. I think in the initial memorandum, there weren't signatures or person defined. So one of the things we've been working toward is trying to understand if how to see if there can be a representative versus just in each school having somebody, because we get a little too large. So if there's anyone who's interested in that, if you could contact Hannah, she and I are coordinating the next meeting, which is set for March, and that really is supposed to be a look at the numbers and an opportunity to have a more school by school analysis instead of county system, school system. And so we are really interested. I know that there are charter schools that have kind of had some involvement, but I think that there is more needed, and we're just trying to figure out what the right structure will be for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here you talked about caseloads. What's the typical caseload of a? I know it varies. I know.
So a typical caseload when we're fully staffed should be about 25, 30, but we're currently we've got about 45, 50 on caseloads right now. But once everybody gets back from basic training, those caseloads will be divided out. And then like right now I'm carrying a caseload and Miss Lindsay is doing intakes. So obviously the goal will be to have all that passed off to the court counselors in the spring.
There's a plan.
Yes.
Let's see.
Yeah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Any other questions from anybody from the status of DJJ? Nope. All right. Thank you, Mary. Glad to have you all here.
Yeah.
All I can say is working with court counselors, I understand how important it is. The connections made with those individuals, obviously the hope is for them not to get to y'all. But again, the connection y'all have, the rapport y'all make, the impact you have on these kids while you're trying to change them so that they don't come back is huge. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing. Next on our agenda, committee updates. You ready to take it away?
Okay. So planning committee. So I will say that we've done a lot of work and we've met 6 times. 3 times we have met. It was myself and Lorraine, Hannah, Scott, Jeremy, Beth, Brandon, D. Terrell, Sylvia, and George. Angel, were you in? No, you weren't. I'm thinking the executive committee. Whew. So, and then we met another 3 times this week, just me and Hannah and Lorraine and Eva with the county to review the lengthy document, which is the service continuum. So I just want to address the service continuum first, because I know you all receive a lot of documents and emails, and so you have received this, but it's the service continuum, and it was something that was sent out last year as well, and it's an attempt to capture all the services in the county, from just basic community services through Parks and Rec, services that maybe the county supports, grassroots, nonprofits, and then it goes to services that have to be paid for via Medicaid or via departmental DJJ funds. So it's a lot. And so we have gone back and forth, and we had mentioned this to you all in the past, that, well, we're just going to send this document out, y'all just take a peek at it. Well, we know really that's not going to happen, because we all have other jobs and it's just very overwhelming and a lot of information. So what we decided was, let's tackle part of this so we can move through this. And what we did was look at the clinical piece. And just because of chairing this committee and my background in the clinical piece, I said, let's just, and it took 3 times to meet this week at 1.5 to 2 hours each. I just want to say thank you, everyone, to just tackle the clinical piece. And how we decided, we really are trying to streamline this document and make it easier to read for anyone, the layperson, to come and look at this, to see, what exactly they're reading, what they're looking for. So what we did this week was basically input clinically outpatient programs as best we could, meaning, the bigger agencies, family preservation, RHA, the Medicaid billable programs, and the services that they provide for kids. We did not put adult services because that is not the intent of this document. So, and you can look at that, Hannah, scrolling that up now. What we also did was then separated out with Medicaid billable residential programs and then DJJ referral programs, because we thought that was important to separate that out for kids who are involved with DJJ services, and those are the only youth that can be referred to these certain programs. So it was important to separate that out, and Lorraine was super helpful with that piece. And so the list is overly exhaustive of Medicaid billable residential facilities in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and Virginia, even Florida, Georgia, a few in Texas. We're not going to list all that. That's just way too much. What we decided to pull out, what would be pertinent for the purpose of this, is for youth who are at risk, right? That's who we're looking at first of all to serve your at-risk youth. Youth who are at risk of going into higher level services, youth who are at risk of going into residential services, into incarceration. So what we did was pull out the local residential programs, which there aren't a lot that we know. I mean, that's something that's not a surprise. So we made sure that we put the current services for ELIDA on there, because they are our local Medicaid billable residential program. They've been through a lot of changes over the years, so I tried to input the most recent services that they have. We also put Timber Ridge, even though Timber Ridge is in Salisbury, you know, Timber Ridge has been around for many years and they really, their specialty is serving, you know, DJJ involved at-risk youth, even though it's not a DJJ referral program. But that's why you'll see Timber Ridge on there, just because they really have served the youth that we work with for many, many years. But, and then what we did was we listed a link that goes to Via's child, and it's a child continuum document basically that's updated every now and then. I say, there's no specific time frame that we say, oh, it's time to update that document. As you all know, it's super fluid here in the state with child services, and it changes on a dime with what's available and what's not available due to many, many circumstances. So we have put together a document. Initially, we put this document together for our DSS directors and partners to help with our DSS youth, but this is for any child. The link here, when you look at services, and it's really good because it explains services from outpatient to inpatient. So if you all want to know what the heck is FCT, family-centered treatment, what is IIH, intensive in-home, it's going to be on there explaining those services. So even for you folks, it would be helpful for you all to download that. I can send that to you, Mary, just the link.
Okay.
It really helps explain a lot of the child services. That's the continuum in a nutshell. So I was just giving you an overview of how often we met just to tackle that part. So we didn't look at the other pieces. We just decided to sit back now. Oh, hey, a few other things that we put on there were these community respite programs, because those are really important and something that I will say that VIA has worked really hard on in response to DSS directors saying, hey, we got these kids on the couch, which we know is still a problem. We're not going to solve everything immediately, but these programs are local, you know, where youth can go. And we've explained it on there what those community respite programs are. You know, Hawthorne Heights in the west, Brandy Nicole here in Buncombe, Pier Haven and McDowell, but they're all have VIA beds, VIA kids. So things that are, like I said, pertinent for the youth we serve that would be helpful, we tried to update. Questions on that?
Just one comment. Huge thanks to Eva Davis,
Yes.
who is fellow with the county manager's office, and who early this fall started doing some youth resource mapping with a focus on suicide prevention. And Angie and I were both very excited to learn that this work aligned with her project. So she has done an enormous amount of work in really updating a lot of the resources here. And then Jess from VIA and Eva and a number of other community partners, including from United for Youth, and maybe folks from the schools. There's been a lot of efforts around youth resource mapping, or goals set around youth resource mapping lately, including some youth voice and leadership program mapping. And that isn't embedded in here yet. If you look closely at this, you'll see there's a couple of comments still. Our hope is to take the content from this and then in January work with our communications team and our other partners to try to make this document something that's this resource something that's more accessible. I know one of the things when we heard from some of the Buncombe County SROs in discussion about trying to refer lower level behaviors to other resources was sometimes a perception that that folks in the community felt like they needed to refer to court in order to get resources. And we want to really try to counter that a little bit with trying to increase awareness of both JCPC programs that take referrals directly from community as well as the other resources available.
Yes, thank you, Hannah, for that, because we're going to do that. We want to do that. We had talked about that, and the holidays will move, but we'd like to do a Teams, Zoom, WebEx, whatever works best. But with Sheriff's Department, with the SROs and APD, with officers, and then bring our programs in. We can bring the counselors in as well to be able to highlight the programs. We did this in Henderson County with JCPC last year. We're getting ready to do it again next year, and I can't tell you how they said it was super helpful. And we also brought in social workers and counselors. That's the cool thing about virtual. So because you sit here and you hear this information, but how are you going to get it out?
I think this is fantastic.
It's the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we've been waiting on. I mean, it breaks it down for categories. If you got kids that need mentoring, you got kids who need vocational, like this is what they need in order to redirect. It'd be good if we can get it into the teachers' hands or the administrators in schools so that they understand and help support that push, because that's always what, at least from our SROs, is that there's a disconnection between that.
Everybody wants to work together in this same way. They just don't know how to. And this is.
And as you all are reviewing it, if there's things that you need edits or additions, let us know. If anything's in the wrong category, we're still working with trying to adjust this to make it the most publicly accessible, user-friendly. It's something that has been mostly, I think, looked at by Chief Clement over the years, and occasionally the JCPC, but really want to make it more publicly accessible.
Okay, so then secondly, moving on to the needs report and priorities. So, and then Lorraine, if I misspeak or probably say a wrong number, you can help me out. So so what we did was, in planning for the risk and needs and how we worked this was, of course, we reviewed all the YAZI data. And this number, I don't know, is correct, and Lorraine, help me. There were 620 petitions filed or 526 petitions. I don't know why I have those two separate numbers here.
Down to the new report data. There were 526 YAZIs completed last year.
And does everyone, I'm not sure we say Yazi, but I don't know if everyone's understanding what Yazi is. It sounds close to like Yahtzee, like a game. So I just wanted to make sure. I didn't really know until I got involved what Yazi is and what it really involves.
It's almost as much fun as Yahtzee, right? Looking at court services because the court counselors and court services are the ones that complete the 100+ questions on the full screen. And it's the youth assessment screening instrument that court services and DJJ switched to in January 2 years ago. That's correct. I don't think it was 3, but is it 3? 2. I think it was in January. Yeah, so coming up on. And so the YAZI is really designed as a case for, I'll just do this real quickly. It's designed for case management. So it's not really designed for collecting data neatly, but it is a wonderful resource for the youth and really helps with assessing, knowing, and also it's based on motivational interviewing. So you're getting information from the youth and the family and it gets updated. So it is designed to be able to link youth coming through DJJ with services, and is much more extensive than the former risk assessment, which North Carolina assessment of risk was mostly historical questions. So and a lot of the questions are like the alcohol and drug ones, or in the past 3 months, have you used alcohol, that kind of thing, as opposed to the former risk assessment was, have you ever, past history of misuse and that kind of thing. So,
okay. Thank you, Lorraine.
So that's your 500.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is do just I
didn't send out this full YAZI data document. If people are interested, we can. It's 75 pages, as you see here. So that's why
holiday read
summary report of 8 pages that looks more dense is at least still a summary.
Thanks, Hannah. So that's why I'm giving you all a high-level overview here. So out of those, 299 youth were white, 195 youth were Black, 90 Hispanic, 26 biracial, and 3 Islander. I think I got that right. So a few positives that we pulled out from this data is that a lot of the youth had high strengths level. There was only one YDC referral, and that's the Youth Development Center. And that's not positive to go there. So we only had 1 youth, which was good.
It's better there than upstairs.
Yeah.
Let me just, is that right,
Well,
Scott? Yes.
Better there
Very
than
much.
upstairs. You're right, George. Thank you for that. Just saying. There's a lot of high youth supervision, meaning, you know, within their community or home environment. And then the number of youth receiving mental health services, surprisingly, was high and a positive. Concerns. So one concern was, and I've just put some numbers here, even though there were 32 youth involved in 2 or more activities, 191 were interested but not involved. Now here's our big sticking point, which is what we'll be talking about, have been talking about. There are a high number of police reports filed by the school. 49% in Buncombe versus 29% in the state. So that's a big deal, and that's not a positive. And then another concern was 42% of the youth had a mental health diagnosis versus 41% in the state. High number of assaultive behavior, 47% in Buncombe versus 41% in the state. And we went around a little bit, and Scott looked, and Sylvia looked, I think, I don't know, trying to figure out what that meant and what the assaultive piece meant, but I don't think we landed solely on that yet. And then another just of note, because this will take us to what some of our recommendations or the RFP piece will be. 17 out of 151 youth ages 12 and under said yes to using substances. Some more highlights here we noted. There's a high number of low need youth referred. So that's not that great. A high number of low risk youth referred. And then back to the high number of police reports filed by the school.
So a lot of reports for kids that don't need services.
Yes,
Like services, but maybe not court.
Courts,
exactly.
correct.
Which brings us to many things we'll be discussing, because this also goes back to race and equity, but we're going to talk about that separately here in a minute. But the one piece of that too is addressing that is getting, again, like we just said, with the SROs about services, and then we'll be talking about the other pieces.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
when you report it, does that mean report it to DJJ or just incident reports themselves?
Those are DJJ.
Okay, DJJ.
All of this data from the is coming from the YASI assessment. So we're talking about just the DJJ referral population that's going to court services. So, yeah.
And this covers the, how back? Is this just a year, last year's?
Yeah, last year.
July 1, 22 through June 30th, 23.
Last fiscal year, yeah. Questions? Yeah, before we keep, yes, Judge Dotson Smith.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether or not the state data is going to be able to show us what the percentage is of referrals that didn't make it to DJJ. And I think Lorraine already spoke to this, but I'm wondering, given how we're needing to compare or able to compare the state to the county in terms of what's coming into DJJ, if there's any mechanism that we think with the school dashboard that's going to allow us to also see if our percentage of referrals that don't make it to DJJ is similar or how it compares statewide. Any ideas?
That's a good question, Judge Dotson Smith. The school there is the dashboard for the school justice partnership, that data, but that is all, that just shows school referrals to DJJ. That one doesn't show community. I'm trying to think. We do get risk data that shows at the end of this report here, let's see, we do get it, but at the end of the year. In other words, I think I could do a data request midway through the year and put in a request to get some of that data. I think it's possible to do that. I just would have to put in a data request. And then at the end of the year, we could look at the previous year. I do have access to that, if that helps.
Thank you.
Lorraine, does this mean like the referrals that are coming into DJJ that kind of get separated out prior to, so they don't make it to court? Or are we just talking about referrals in general that are just coming in for services?
We're talking about, this would be referrals to community programs. So they'd be just JCPC, referrals to JCPC funded programs here in Buncombe County, and then comparing those to the community-based referrals statewide coming to other JCPC programs. I could ask for that statistic.
And I think locally, data that the schools track is with, I think Buncombe County with their new code of conduct is trying to start tracking what interventions are put into place when a behavior occurs that either they're responding to with a discipline response and or an intervention response. And I'm not sure about Asheville City's tracking of that data, Asheville City Schools tracking of that data at this point in time of like looking at the interventions paired with disciplinary responses. But that's, even with Buncombe County Schools, that's brand new to be requiring folks to enter that information. So it'll just be starting to capture.
Other questions before I move forward to talk about some other pieces of this, about what I've discussed already? Okay, so as you all know, we're in a 2-year planning process here, and a lot of the counties in the state now are moving towards that. We voted to approve the 2-year planning process. However, we have to send out an RFP because we have a newer program that has only been a part of the JCPC funded programs for a year now. And that's the Buncombe County Clinical Justice Services Program. And so if they want to continue to receive services, and of course, if we voted on that and approved that through the process, that they could obviously serve our youth again, but they are only funded for 1 year. So that leaves us with sending out an RFP for services for $73,357. Okay, versus the whole lump sum, because the other programs, of course, that are serving our youth are funded for 2 years. So they're set until the next planning year. So with that, what our job as the planning committee is, of course, is to review all this data that we've discussed, and then decide upon what we feel is going to be most important to choose to go on the request for proposals to send out for services for the next year. Now, of course, we review, we choose, and then we're bringing it here to you all to vote, of course, as a council. So that's why we're here today to present this. I will say that with the racial equity data, we wanted to, that really plays into this, and we've highlighted that, some of that in our needs finding here that Hannah's pulled up, but we didn't have near the time to review that data because it's really just come out. And so we felt that it would be doing an injustice if we just basically just ignored that data and said, you know what, we're just not going to worry about it till next year. And so what we decided to do was, number one, we have to move forward with the planning committee and getting this RFP out. However, we want to give the equal time for the presentation of the equity data. So in a little bit, we're going to talk about that presentation that we're going to be having with Crystal from the state, and Lorraine can talk a little bit about that. But she's going to be able to present to us, right, all the data that she's pulled for racial equity, that we can really then start to really go through the weeds of that and pick through that. And then that will, we feel, the planning committee anyway, and the executive leadership team of the JCPC feel that once we really have a chance to comb through all that data, then we'll be better informed for the next planning process, which is the full funding, right, that we can really look at for our programs. And in that as well, with the racial equity data piece, we're going to be proposing a form, and don't stress, it's for the programs to bring to us when we meet, that lays out just a few pieces of their financial data and the referral pathways, who referred kids to them, and the race of the youth they're serving. It's a simple form. We do it in Henderson County. Believe me, it'll just take you a few minutes to go through it. But that will really start, again, to help informing us as a council immediately on the ground at the race piece as well. Now, before I move forward, I just want to say, is there anyone on the executive leadership that wants to speak to that before I move forward talking more about the planning piece?
Do you want me to pull up the program report now or in a little bit?
Sure. Yes. Great.
I think while she pulls that up, I think obviously being race conscious about our services and how they're getting implemented into our county is huge. And so having that data is important for us to determine the next steps regarding funding. So I'm just glad to be able to have it and have that opportunity for Crystal to be able to come in and help explain, break that down. I think that's a lot of our questions that we have of what's going on within our county and how it's affecting the youth racially.
Yes.
So thank you.
And it will, because going back, and I'm not going to just to mention this, that even though back to the numbers piece that we had pulled from the Yazzie data with race, that, there were 299 youth who were white and 195 youth who are Black. You're like, oh, 299, that's more than 195. But not really, because when you look at the demographics here in Asheville, that discrepancy is huge. So Crystal will be able to help us pull that out and look at that. So just know, when you look at that and we all look at that, we go, oh my gosh, wow, that speaks volumes, just those numbers. So I just wanted to point that out.
I want to add too, I think something that just really sparked my interest was, Crystal mentioning how, they're going to create just a Black group outside of the minority. And that just made me realize, like, if the state is saying, okay, we need to really pull out Black data out of the minority inclusive, then what are we doing here to also look at that as well? Because minority as a whole may be looking or appearing that we're doing services well, but truth be told, we're not. So when she said that, I was like, wow, so the state is recognizing, again, can't lump Black students in with minorities. We need to have a focus on Black students.
So just to show this form, this isn't a final form. I need to get a little bit more input before we finalize it. Trying to adapt currently, very briefly, like quickly trying to adapt within a structure of a form that was already created. If we need to restructure it, we can do that. One option would be to have programs break out, and this is all also recognizing that when there are low levels of numbers of youth, for DJJ involved youth, their protection of anonymity is really both legally and like ethically important. So trying to think about how to do that maybe with percentages as opposed to numbers but one option would be to look at percentage of youth who are served year to date who are Black and percentage of youth served year to date who are BIPOC. We can also, I was playing around a little bit with, we could also just have a second page and do demographics and break it down as much as we can and just try to figure out if we're putting, I need to make sure that we're aligning what we're asking for with how the programs are collecting it. So if Hispanic and Latino is being collected as race, then we should at least allow them to report it in the way that they're collecting it, even when a lot of best practices are to collect Hispanic or Latino ethnicity separately. So I need a little bit more information around that. And then just making sure that one of the reasons that we were initially leaning towards percentage year to date is so that if there's one kid referred in the previous month, it's not an immediate to one program. It's not an immediate one-to-one for identity purposes. So if anyone has thoughts on this, I welcome input, and I'll be trying to follow up also with programs to make sure. I think we've been looking a little bit at what NC Allies has the capacity to collect, and so welcome input on that. Dr. No, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. One, I do appreciate all the data that was given so far, and I'm glad to know that there is more equity data coming. I would like to be, I know I'm not on the planning committee, but just knowing that Crystal will be coming and giving that data, just as my role, specifically with Buncombe County, I would love to be in that meeting. I have questions more than what there's time for in this meeting, and I don't want to monopolize, so I will reach out individually just to gain some understanding of a few things that I have questions on, being that I'm still reading through all the things that DK handed over to me and getting familiar. But I appreciate the work that's been done. The resource sheet is amazing. And so I just wanted to share that I would like to be on that meeting with Crystal, looking at the racial equity data, and then I will reach out separately to ask a few more questions to get a little bit better understanding, and offer support in whichever way my office can.
Great, thank you.
And I know we have, do you want to just highlight the meeting? So on February 1st, we're proposing having additional full JCPC council meeting Thursday, February 1st from 12:30 to 2. So that would be the full council. And, you know, as all JCPC meetings are public meetings, it'll be up as well. And I think that this is the second year that the state of North Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice has broken down data by race and ethnicity. And this is but they have been trying to walk local communities through that data by having Crystal, their racial and ethnic disparity data expert, come to walk through the data instead of just giving it to us. So we actually haven't seen last year's racial and ethnic disparity data ourselves. I think the planning committee the year before got a preview of it, but and then along with some recent reports, it mostly confirmed that the largest point of inequity locally is at the point of referral of complaints filed, of referral, people referring into the juvenile justice system is our largest inequity. But Crystal can be able to walk us through all of that. And I believe that she has the capacity to break it down by charge type and potentially even by school. And so we're trying to, we're really looking forward to having her here so that we can see a lot of that data and start that conversation that a lot of people have been wanting to be able to look at the numbers to have.
the executive committee asked if she would add some additional pieces to that data, and she's put in a data request for that to bring those to that meeting. So that will be helpful. And the racial and ethnic disparities data looks at youth at each entry. The purpose, it's to look at youth at each entry point into the DJJ system. So it would start with, community referrals, which ones get referred to DJJ versus the schools, or either referring directly to other programs or handling something, like in-house, depending, of course, on the charge, because some are required by law to have a police report file, depending on the charge. And so then it looks at each entry point, how many are approved for court, how many are diverted. So it breaks it down at each point. Detention, youth development center, placements, those types of things. So, and Miss Wynn Lewis, she'll do a great job with it. She's a good trainer.
So Jocelyn Smith, do you have
Yeah,
any
I just wanted to know whether or not Crystal's going to be able to pull any information that crosses into whether these are students who have IEPs or 504s or have been noted to need accommodations, because I think that question mark needs to be kind of addressed too, and I know that gets into HIPAA issues.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if DJ, like with the Yazi, I'm not sure that's trying to think back. I know that's not one of the questions that's reported on the Yazi, but I'm not sure. I don't remember even seeing that question in the data when I've looked at other pieces, but I may have overlooked it, but that's a good question. I will pass that question along.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we move to talk about the proposed priority areas that we have identified? Okay, so wrapping all this up, there are a few, again, since we're not working with the full amount, we're just working with the $73,357. Instead of, we have our priorities listed, but we really thought, let's just go ahead and hit the highlights of the two top priorities that we're looking at, that can be used for that funding. So the first priority area we identified would be CCAs and individual and or group counseling with an emphasis on substance use. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the second proposal would be restorative services, restorative justice programs. And of course, restorative services would be like victim offender meetings, community efforts to help offenders in various areas, employment, education, mentoring, and of course, social integration. So we felt like that was important.
There is a guidebook that the Coalition Restoring Youth in C came to present to the state, has I think 6 different program models of restorative justice models that DJJ has kind of signed off on. So that we can share that with the RFP.
Okay. I do want to share, hold on, we have something outside here that's loud. I want to share just a little bit of data too, since we're talking about our proposed areas, and it has to do with clinical assessments. So that's what a CCA is, a comprehensive clinical assessment, which a CCA is the gateway for youth and adults to receive any type of behavioral health service. So any youth coming through DJJ, if they're going to receive any type of a behavioral health service, they have to have a CCA completed, especially if they have Medicaid. But some type of assessment has to be completed. For many years and continuing, there's what we call a JJTC, a juvenile justice treatment continuum, and they meet weekly. And I say they, I mean the behavioral health providers, along with some of the DJJ court counselors and supervisor and via, and I said providers, to review youth coming in and to ensure that they're getting the assessments and the services that they need. And so part of that is Youth Villages, which is an organization who is contracted to do CCAs for DJ youth, for all the JJTCs in our 31 county catchment area. Now, during the pandemic, of course, they were short staffing and we had DJJ youth that were on wait lists for CCAs to even get into services. And so that's really where this started to come about, was the Buncombe County Clinical Justice Program that has just started to get up and running off the ground, where AVA is able to provide CCAs and individual and group counseling. And also they're able to provide substance use outpatient counseling as well, which is huge, because I will say that's a huge lack in Buncombe and all of our counties, to be honest, and has been for many years for youth, especially. I wouldn't say adults, but for youth, it's a real need for basic outpatient counseling for substance use. So I know we have a few agencies now that we work with that are able to provide that. So just a few data points, and then we'll finish up here. With the assessments for DJJ, what we call them single point of assessments, which is getting your CCA from August to November, August 1st to November 30th. There were 42 assessments completed within the time frame, 43 referrals received. The average was 15 days from referral to assessment. Youth Villages offered 88 CCA slots during that time frame, and 56 of those slots were filled. 42 assessments completed. So the service breakdown, this is interesting, and we do this for DJJ, and we also pull this data for DSS. VIA has a service continuum with our DSS directors, and to where we offer Youth Villages slots for youth involved in an investigations phase, the family in-home phase, and even the foster care or the PPL stage, to be able to, again, provide that gateway to services. So we carry this same data, but this is just the DJJ breakdown. 43%, there was a recommendation for no services. 19%, a referral for outpatient services. 14% received a referral for LifeSet, and that's a specific program that Youth Villages administers, and that is for more transitional aged youth to help them, again, integrate into society, learn how to manage their money, get jobs, sort of like restorative services. 10% received a community-based referral, which would be intensive in-home, which is a home-based service, a Medicaid billable service for youth and families to help prevent out-of-home placement. Also FFT, which is the DJJ. What's that stand for again, Lorraine?
Family Functional Therapy.
Thank you. Intercept, which is another program like Intensive in-Home. It's a family and youth-based program that works in the home and school to prevent youth from having to be placed in a higher level of care. And there's actually one referral for the TASK program, Treatment Alternatives for Sexualized Kids, which is run by CHA, Children's Hope Alliance. And as you all know, for many years, the Buncombe JCPC funded that program, which is a great program. But now we don't have to fund it anymore, which was able to release some money for us because the state now funds that program statewide. 12% were referred for MST, which is multi-systemic therapy, which is for youth that mainly have conduct disordered or antisocial type diagnostic treatment recommendation for youth that really are involved more with more serious crimes and really trying to is especially work with the youth and families to keep them in the community for older kids. And then there were not any recommendations for therapeutic foster care, PRTF, which is a psychiatric residential treatment facility. It's a locked facility for youth. It's a Medicaid billable service. It's like a 3 to 9 month service, super high dollar. It can be $400 to $500 a day. And then level 3, and not to be confused with a level 3 in the DJJ realm, level 3 in the mental health realm, which is a group home. That's 24/7 supervision as well, which is like $300 to $380 a day, 0% referral for that. So again, looking at all of this and seeing the high need for counseling, for outpatient counseling for youth, it's nice to see in the data that we did have a high number of youth receiving counseling, but as we still know, that is a barrier here in the county and others. There are still wait lists for youth who just need basic outpatient counseling. And so to put out the RFP, even for CCAs, along with outpatient counseling, which would provide mental health counseling as well, and an emphasis on substance use with someone who has that specialty to provide that for youth, that has a, who's a licensed clinical associate that can provide that would be very helpful for our youth. And then of course the restorative justice piece. Questions? George, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
All right. Andy, do we have to vote on the priorities? Obviously, this is the recommendation from the planning committee as to the priorities for this RFP. Is that appropriate at this point? Is just to vote on those priorities recommended from the planning committee?
Specifically the funding yes, I think the ranked priorities is, to just keep tabs on the planning committee's assessment of all the priorities locally, but with a focus on which ones to open up funding for, given the limited amount of funding that we need JCPC approval of before we put out the RFP, which normally goes out in January.
And are we voting on each priority or do we vote on them together?
We vote on the recommendation that is approved by the planning committee. If someone makes a motion as to at least as to what the recommendation is, or if they have an objection to any of those priorities that's been recommended. And again, this is for the $73,357 that needs to come out for this is because of what Buncombe County Youth Justice Clinical Program is a 1 year. So this is just kind of shoring up that other one. Everyone else has 2 years. So this is the RFP process for that 1 year of amount of money. We have a planning committee recommendation. Is there any motions by anyone as to recommend and to go forward on this recommendation, or are there any objections to any recommendations?
I move to approve. No, recommend. I move to recommend. I move to recommend priority 2 comprehensive clinical assessments, and priority 6 restorative services to go forward
with the RFP.
With the RFP.
A second.
All right.
I want to make sure I said it right.
We can get approval from everyone that's either on Zoom or here present. If you approve, can you say yay?
Yay.
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 Any opposition? You can say nay.
Detail McGirt, I see you have your hand raised.
McGirt.
That's by accident. Sorry.
Thank you.
I like the brown hand, McGirt. All right, so it looks like we can go ahead and move forward on that RFP, knowing what our priorities are for this allocation of money. It looks like next on, we've already talked about Crystal Wynn Lewis is coming in. Again, make sure that you are available for that. If you have any desire to understand the sort of details behind what's going on with youth services and all that kind of stuff. DJJ, make sure you're there so you can break down that data that she's going to be providing. Next, we've got Mr. Priester, Monitoring Committee.
Sir, Mr. Chair. I think we still need volunteers.
Okay.
I think I had 2 last time. I know John Johnson reached out to me and said he wanted to be on the monitoring committee. I had 2 last time. I'm not sure if y'all emailed me or not. I think Dr. I don't want to mispronounce her name.
Dr. No?
And there was another gentleman.
Andy Babowski.
Yep.
My memory.
So Brendan, you got 3, is that right?
Yes, if I'm memory.
Thank you, Dr. No. She's confirming.
So Dr. No confirmed.
Yes.
Andy's not here, is that right? We got an email saying that Andy's not here, but
Yeah, but he's still
he's
committed.
still on board.
We have 6 programs, so I think we need 2, and then there's 2 parts to the. So yeah, I mean, what do you like to say, voluntold? I don't know. I'll let you do that, Mr. Chair. But yeah, we would definitely need folks for the monitoring. I think we're looking at the 1st or 2nd week around orientation to explain what we're gonna do.
And the monitoring, they monitor with the court counselor, is that correct? Is that how it usually happens?
That is how it usually happens. This year, it's a little bit different because court services has been so short-staffed. And I think in the past, the groups monitoring have kind of relied on court services, like knowledge and know-how for feeling comfortable in each of those groups. I think they are still gonna send some court counselors, but they will be newer and might be learning during that process. So any monitors who have, any volunteers, JCPC members who have done monitoring in the past and are willing to help, it might not be 1-to-1 this year.
And I think that for just a reminder of the commitment level, it is to do orientation with Lorraine and the committee so you know what you're doing, and then to either pair up with a court counselor or an experienced monitor, hopefully, and go visit the program. And a lot of people really enjoy going in person. If it needed to be virtual, it's possible to do it virtually. And I think that's what Angel, like a 2 to 3 hour chunk of time in one day.
Yeah.
So
it's informative.
Yeah, pretty low level of time.
And there's in the orientation that Brandon and I have already met, and in the orientation that we'll offer a couple of times. If you can't make one, you can make another, and we'll go through all the forms. It's about 4 pages of kind of checklists, and the programs are responsible for gathering all of the information you'll need, and we'll have that available. You just kind of go down through the checklist and ask them for the different things, and they'll show you probably they usually will show you much more even than it's on the checklist, because they're very proud of their programs. And so even if you're a newer JCPC member, it's a great opportunity to really get to know the programs and to get a little bit of a deeper dive that way into all the requirements that JCPC programs have as well, because JCPC funding can repeat each year, which is a definite plus for nonprofits. But it also comes with a lot of requirements that are a little different than just getting a one-time grant, so.
Needless to say, monitoring is extremely important, right? I mean, it wouldn't make any sense if we couldn't monitor the programs that are getting the funding within our county for our youth. So it's a huge piece that we need help with. Obviously, we need help also because DJJ is down in numbers. So what we normally have been doing was teaming up with the court counselor. Obviously, they're short staffed, as almost everyone is in the world. So I don't anticipate this being a sort of long-term project where we're holding the piece of it. I think it'll be a joint effort in the future. We're just waiting for them to kind of get their staff up to speed. So we do need help with Brandon, making sure that we monitor and come back with what information y'all are able to get through these committees so that we can make decisions based on the future as to how we want to allocate, which will be the next committee that comes up. So we have any volunteers today the monitoring committee.
You sold me.
Oh, there you go. There we go. I appreciate you. All right, anyone else? And if by chance an email goes out that goes from volunteering to voluntold, it may be coming your way. So as much as we don't like to, have we got a hand?
Banta Whitner. Thank you so much, Banta.
There you go.
It does happen. I did receive an email when I first started about being voluntold. I didn't want to volunteer because I was new, but I was voluntold. It was a really good experience though. If you're wanting to learn more about the program, going and seeing the program as it works and asking questions really helps you sell that program when it comes time to allocations.
And I'll say, I want to give a shout out to so many new members jumping on board with the monitoring committee. Thank you so much. I don't know if we need to voluntold some former monitoring committee members, just, you know, for your experience and wisdom, keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I don't know if it's something that other staff members can support who are not JCPC members. Just let us know.
And you all do have some, you all do have a quorum, but you have some folks out today too, so an email follow-up might be.
And I can say it's a lot more glamorous and sexy than the planning committee. So be glad that you are on the monitoring and allocations committee.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, that's one component of it I forgot is that you do get to do a little report out, 3 minutes or less.
Yes.
February meeting, so you get to shine there.
All of this happens in January. 1 hour brief overview session, and we can do that remotely so that to make it convenient, maybe during the lunch hour or whatever. I've got some times and dates, and Brandon can send those out to see what works for folks, and then 2 hours later on, and then one of the partners coming to the February meeting to report out. So that's the process.
Thank you, Sergeant Loveland, for getting that started. Once you get one hand raised and other hands begin to raise, it's extremely important, obviously, to be involved. We can't sit on the sidelines and kind of but we need to get our hands dirty, and you got to get involved in some of these committees to understand what's really going on and to kind of direct the flow of how we want our community to be raised. So I appreciate everyone who volunteered just now for the monitoring committee. I believe we got 2 or 3. So Brandon.
We have 5 in total, including myself.
There you go. And we'll work on patching it up if we need to. We'll get those numbers straight.
6 now. With Andy, Dawn, Dr. No, Sergeant Loveland, Banta, and yourself.
I think Ava, someone said that they were interested as well. So
I think Ava and I, if other staff members are useful to support, then I think both Ava and I are happy to support.
Thank you for that. Then we'll move on to the allocations committee. Angel, what you got?
I have nothing to report as of now.
It's a 2 years, so fortunately for Angel, she is.
No, it's been 2 years.
Strategically, she has placed herself where allocations is really only needed for this 173,357 that will come after the RFP. So relaxing right now.
So we will put out the RFP, and depending on how many applications we get, we'll see how much of a lift it is. If the currently funded program is the only one that applies, it's probably much less of a lift, but we still will need at least 10 committee members, I think, by our bylaws or committee rules to go through that process, but it will be a much shorter day. If we get a lot more applications, then I imagine it'll be a more complex day. But it would be reviewing whatever applications we get and then participating in an allocations hearing day, which historically has taken, we've asked people to commit the day, and we're not sure yet how long, but it might be a morning, it might be a day if we get a lot of applications.
Do I need to wrangle up committee members? Can people be on multiple committees?
Yeah.
Would anyone like to also?
And I'd love to.
Officer Loveland.
I
Thank you.
saw- Yeah.
Here, and you've got
Appreciate your
Shannon
support.
and Eric
Okay.
from up past.
You saw that, right?
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
And I will just say, since we're in a 2-year process, just for the program's sake, since many of you are funded for year 2, and this is the first time Buncombe has done 2-year funding, the way that works is that all of you who are funded for year 2 will submit a program agreement. You can go into NCLIs and copy it, your last year's agreement for 24-25. Make sure you pick the right year, because both, and it is in NCLIs now and both are available. So when you go and do that, you will need to go ahead and put your program agreement in by the deadline. That way it will ensure it's in there for review and get funding on time next year by doing so.
And for full transparency, I mean, if there were serious concerns brought up at monitoring, then I think the allocations committee, has the right to look at that. But I think that the goal of 2-year funding is to be able to support the programs for those 2 years.
Yeah, that is correct. At the end of monitoring, part of that report will be, do you recommend the program for continued funding for the rest of the year? Recommend with some exceptions or some concerns, or don't recommend?
I'll sit on that with y'all, Angel. Thank you. You just did.
Sergeant Loveland just starting, I mean,
I
look at it. It's
know.
just-
If Sergeant Loveland can
this
get
is-
this time.
It's very clear that I was just voluntold by I.
I see.
Did you see that?
I did.
I
It
saw
was
you try to
intense.
look past it, I wanted to make sure.
An intense stare will get you voluntold. No words needed. Thank you all. So as we move on, I believe about a little less than 10 minutes left. We've got Lorraine kind of give a program update. I think we kind of went over sort of briefly the written program update and perhaps what that may entail from Hannah. Lorraine, anything regarding JJ community and programs update?
The only thing that I will add is, I will keep it real short today. There is a program, the regular program summary that went out that shows number of DJJ referrals. I did experiment with pulling some of the racial and ethnic disparities data with this to see how that would work, and I did do some copies of that, but I think we sent out the one without it. But I think actually one of the good pieces that from looking at that data is it kind of helped me look from last year. It seems like the referrals coming in are more or are broken down more by program. So that's a lot of the program. What I did is I did group everyone together, because a lot of them had like maybe one Native American, one Indigenous, or one couple of Hispanics, that kind of thing. So the way NCLIs is set up for that data, it asks specifically, if for race, and then if the person, and then it also asks if they identify as Latino/Hispanic. And so there's a yes there that is probably coming from the referral source on the referral form that the programs are putting into NCLI. So I experimented with pulling that to see what that would look like, and it looked pretty good. There was 45% of the referrals were BIPOC is what I did. I combined them all together. So it was not, so it was not broken out, but we can look at that after we have our training with Ms. Wynn Lewis and just kind of see, you know, what Crystal recommends, and maybe, I know Angel, you recommended maybe following the same guidelines as she was able to pull the data from, so we'll see how we can do that. Okay, thank you. And then for anyone who's new, you can see on this program report, it will show how many you served year to date. How many of those were only 91 of them came from court services out of the 117. So that gives you a picture of how many are being referred through DJJ versus the community referrals. And keep in mind that there are certain types of charges, but for the lesser charges, those seem to really be increasing a lot directly to programs. So that was good to see. But you've got that, and then the backside, page 2 of that report is all the termination information, who's completed programs at this point as of December 18th. Any questions about this report for this month? And then the only other thing I wanted to say is that juvenile justice overall has been really working on trying to increase capacity for residential programming for DJJ beds. A lot of them are in other parts of the state and not in our part of the state, but they are still used sometimes. And one of the things that we can send out, there is a Hearth Transitional Living Program, and I put some flyers over there for anyone who's here in the room, and we can email it out. It's way over near Greensboro, but just to kind of build on what we talked about with the other piece, when you're looking at, there are different levels, and levels in DJJ are a little bit different than in the Medicaid world of, you know, level 2, level 3, which is talking about placements in, like, for foster care and in residential homes. In DJJ, when we're talking about those different levels, they are referring specifically to alternatives to commitment. So instead of having a youth go to a youth development center or to detention, having Methodist Homes and Eckert Connects are 2 contractors, and then there are also community providers that provide community resources such as family functional therapy, like we talked about. AMI Kids offers that, and they are staffed again in the West. They've been here, but they have been down 1 person who served in the far West here. So there are some resources that way that are just DJJ specific, and you'll see those on the resources that Hannah and Eva and Angie worked so hard at putting together and did this great job on. But you'll see some do say DJJ only, and those types of placements are designed to keep youth out of YDCs. So you want to first keep kids in the community. That's the first goal. If they can't be in the community, then having a placement that's not a youth development center or not detention, especially not detention right now, are next options. And then, but then of course, youth development centers have come a long ways too, and also have a lot of resources in them that they didn't have once, you know. And then detention, not so much. And the detention centers, the new step pay plan that went into place with the new budget has really helped. They are getting a lot more people hired. They put in some things in place to kind of speed up that hiring process because it took a lot of time. Court services is not having to go and fill in detention centers and YDCs in a mandated way. They can still volunteer. So that has improved some, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So that's a general update on that, and kind of some clarification on like placement facility pieces in the world of juvenile justice.
Thank you, Lorraine. Obviously we have been given a lot of information, a lot of good information. The program summary, which talks about kind of a breakdown of the clients and services as well as the success rate, and all the other information that we've been given. Thank you, Hannah, Lorraine, for all of this. Just digest it over the holidays. It's a lot, but it's all wonderful stuff. Hannah, do we need to talk any more about the written program update? I know you kind of mentioned that. Is that what we were talking about before, just about
I'll
the
try to
programs?
finalize that with the executive committee and the program input. And then if we can get it finalized in time for programs to complete it by monitoring, I think that that's something that we were thinking might be helpful to do a July 1 through December 30th initial update for the monitoring group. And then after that, it sounded like the executive committee was thinking that programs could do bi-monthly report outs at each JCPC. That sound good?
All right, that moves us to public comments and announcements. I know it's almost 10. I know we do have, still here, is it Jason McDougall? Was he?
Yeah, but I'm also
Yes.
Sarah Gerald, Director of Works Project.
Yes.
Program running out of the former Camp Woodson and Southern Buncombe Fairview, where we're offering career-connected learning opportunities for students. Buncombe County Middle School, Asheville City School, and high schools as well. And working on a relationship with Land of Sky to do some educational work-based opportunities out there as well, starting in January.
So I think Sarah and Jason just wanted to come and let y'all know what they're building. It's what, 6 months into running really, as far as getting them running, but there's been a lot of people who have been trying to turn the former Camp Woodson property, which was a DJJ program that closed in 2011, alternative sentencing program that I'm a staff alumni from, to be something that serves youth in not exactly the same capacity, but really to try to support our local youth in a new way. So if you want more information, Sarah and Jason are here. I'm also happy to help. And if enough people want to set up a meeting, let me know and I can help coordinate that.
Thank you for being here. I know it'd be interesting to be able to figure out what exactly and when it's kicking off, all that kind of stuff. So I know I'll want to be interested in, we'll figure out who wants to be a part of it and perhaps have it some sort of gathering. All right, any other public comments, announcements? Anyone virtually? Is that a hand raised by Judge Johnson Smith?
I see that she had to step out for a call. I'm not sure. Oh, there you
And
go.
I'm back. Thank you. I'm sorry I had to step out briefly, but I did want to mention for everyone, and I'll try to see maybe if we can send this out to the committee, to the members. The Chief Justice has put together his report on ACEs, and it's an interesting read that I thought perhaps would be relevant to this group going forward in terms of recidivism and what its recommendations are. So I just wanted to let y'all know about that.
Thank you, Judge. Anyone else? Public comments? I know it's 3 minutes past 10, so it's technically not finished, but if there's any other comments or anything like that, I'd like to hear from anyone before we adjourn. All right, without hearing anyone, hope everyone has a happy holidays. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
You get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Angie. All right, thank you, everyone who all attended virtually, all attended personally. Hope everyone has a great rest of your year and a happy new year. We will see y'all in 2024.
Thank you, George.